Hello everyone, and thanks for coming back to the channel. Today we're taking a look at the Skyzone 02X goggles. And before I get started in anything, I think it's vitally important that if you have the opportunity to find someone who flies FPV or has some goggles, that you go try them on. Because there's one thing that a video review cannot tell you is how they'll fit on your face. Our faces are all different. We're shaped differently. We have different protrusions, whether it's our nose or our forehead or cheekbones. Our nose, does it start out high? Does it start out low? How far does it come out? All these different things, which are really important when it comes to the fitment. And because you have these on your face, it is really important that you're comfortable in there. And it also matters on the light leak that you might get around the foam. It does come with two sets of foam. You have this set that is kind of a nice, soft, sort of faux leather, and it's a little bit thinner. I think if I were to redo my video, I would probably use the thicker pad, because I found that the nose piece on the thinner pad wasn't quite enough to keep the plastic off of the bridge of my nose. But I saved that because it's very likely that these one day will find a new home with one of you. It also comes with an assortment of cables. I'm not going to go into each detail. They're kind of the cables you expect. And two linear or whip antennas, which we also kind of expect. As well as a big long power cable that you can plug your battery into and keep it in your pocket for powering the goggles. It does use a typical barrel connector, so if you have Fat Shark goggles or Fat Shark batteries you want to use, they'll work just fine. It also comes with a manual, which kind of makes sense in most places. An after-sales service card, and of course a carrying case, which has no features inside. Instead of making a really long video going through every feature, let's assume that the buttons, they all work, and the features that they have, which we expect in goggles of this nature, they all have those features. Now, the button layout and the button action, what they might do depending upon what menu system they're in, may not be really clear. But let's presume that you'll figure it out, because we generally do. And if I were to be telling you how it works, it's coming from someone who's not familiar, because I'm used to using Fat Shark goggles, and this is not intuitive to me. But I'm sure in time, if you were to have these goggles, it would be intuitive to you. I found the strap on the goggles to be actually quite nice. It almost feels like a premium material, a tighter weave than we typically get with Fat Shark goggles. So that's one in its favor. And also it has a button here on the side to power the goggles on and off, so you don't have to unplug your battery all the time. So that's another one over the Fat Shark goggles. The fan up top is a little bit noisier than you do expect, at least compared to Fat Shark goggles. It does have slots for diopters, so if you do need a prescription, if it's very slight, you can buy those -1, -4, and -6 diopters. There's also the ability to get customized diopters available online. I wanted to do something a little bit different, rather than giving you kind of a traditional review method on this, because these have been out for quite a while. The first shipment got lost, don't know where those went. Second one took forever to get here, so another review where I'm late to the party. But what I wanted to do was I wanted to just not fly and then take these out and just use them. Show you the first flight that I take with them, and I'll give you a little bit of the second flight that I take with them as well. And I think what that does is it gives you an idea of someone who is used to Fat Shark goggles and what they're experiencing, rather than comparing them to Fat Shark goggles all the time. It's a loose comparison, I will grant you that. But what I wanted to do was not switch back and forth. I wanted to just go out and fly with these and then talk through what I experience. And we'll get to that in just a minute. But one of the other point that I think that we need to make before we get to that is that these seem to be coming in the market against the Fat Shark Attitude V5s. Now, those are OLED. These are not. But these have a higher resolution. The resolution on these are 854 by 480. And the Fat Shark Attitude V5s are 640 by 400. So there is a difference. OLED is new tech, WVGA is old tech, but you get higher resolution in the old tech versus lower resolution in the new tech. Now, I don't have a pair of V5 Attitudes to compare it to, so I can't tell you what that's like. But what I'm going to do, as I said, is I'm going to take you out and we're going to just play the audio and the DVR from what I experienced. And I'm going to chop up the flight so that you don't have to watch the whole flight, because I'm not necessarily blasting around and it's a 2-minute flight. I'm kind of trying to experience the goggles as I'm flying. So I'm flying a little bit less racy style, if you want to call it that. And I'll cut out the bits where I'm not talking, because I'm not great at talking and flying at the same time. Just ask my kids. One more thing that it's important, even though it's obvious, is Fat Shark goggles have an advantage over the Skyzones. The Skyzones have a built-in receiver. Fat Sharks have modules that we can take in and take out. So over time, if better modules come out, it's going to take quite an effort to put them in here, whereas Fat Shark goggles are made to just be plug and play. I said one last thing, but there's one more thing I do want to show you, and that is the graphical interface from inside the goggles, which is actually quite nice. It's something that we don't get in Fat Sharks. It's colorized, it's pretty sharp, and I don't think it's doing justice what I'm showing you in this pre-recorded video of that graphical interface. But no, it's there, and no, it's pretty nice. So let's get to that outdoor experience. Remember, this is just me trying to be that first-time user, even though I have a lot of Fat Shark experience, try to explain to you what it is I'm experiencing within the goggles.
Let's see what happens. Now last time I did a goggle thing, it said to slow down, so I'll try to slow down. Just first try getting used to the goggles here. This is a much different field of view and different feel. Trying to slow down still. It seems very clear. It feels like I could see those individual leaves a lot better than in my Fat Sharks, if that makes any sense. I don't talk and fly very well. See the different colors in the bark and those leaves up there. The colors, as far as what I'm seeing, feel more true, more to what I expect. I think the Fat Sharks are a little bit more, especially with the sky, a little bit more odd blue color. But the field of view is smaller, so I don't see the detail until I get closer to it. Let's punch it over the house and see what happens. Oh, I forgot what I was flying. Thought I was flying the ER-349, and I am not. Alright, let's go over to the neighbor's yard to see what reception's like. I do have an Axie and patch on. I don't see... There's a fair bit of breakup, but not a lot. Now it's a little bit more than I'm pointed the other way. When the antenna's pointed towards me, it's a lot more passable. It's not terrible. It's about what I would expect. Let's see if we can go around the house. I might have to disarm if this doesn't work out. I don't think it's going to. And I'm getting close to the trees. No, I can't see anything. I have to disarm. Okay, so the reception around the front of the house isn't nearly as good as my rapid fire modules. Let me go retrieve the quad. Well, the quad landed nicely on its battery, on its belly. Let's fly a bit more. Very humid today, so the reception isn't very good, as I often experience on these July days. Well, the battery's almost out. I didn't realize how low it was. We could probably get another minute or so out of this. Feels like the goggles are riding up on my nose a little bit. I might need to work on the position of the pad. Might not be for all shapes and sizes of faces, but they do include that extra pad that's substantially thicker. I don't think, if I were to fly a lot more packs at this, I don't think I would be impeded. I feel like I'm adjusting already. Outside of the sweat rolling off my face, 95 degrees and the humidity is through the roof. at least for us. Alright, let's bring it in. Let's try a different camera. Okay, everything's recording. Now we got the sailfly here. And just sitting here, this does not look as good as normal. So let's go see what it's like to fly it. Whoa. Didn't need so much throttle. Give me a minute to get adjusted here. I don't think we need to fly around the house on 25 milliwatts. We just flew around the house on 200 and didn't make it there, so the reception is definitely not as good. Flying into the sun with this little CMOS all-in-one cameras isn't great, but that should be expected. And we're talking about a $17 camera and VTX instead of a $40 VTX and a $20 or $15 camera. A lot more of an investment there. Just kind of swirling around. You know, when I get that sun out of my lens and I look at a tree, like if I go back over here, I still feel like I see more detail on that tree here than I did on my Fat Sharks, even with the wider field of view. It does get a little bit dark from time to time, but you're probably seeing that as well, and that's a fault of the camera itself. Like right when I did that, let's go back over there. This is more of a camera problem than it is a goggle problem. Just can't handle the changes in light all that well, and can't illuminate things for us or show things to us when the lighting isn't very good. This is a FlySky one of all things. This is actually a sailfly that I bought after the fact because I wanted to check it out to see what had changed from the review model that I had originally reviewed. And if you're curious about that, it's mainly just the KV. Everything else seemed to stay the same. KV on the motors, but of course my motors were misprinted. I think they said 10,000, even though they were 9,000. And now on this one it is 8,500, I believe. At least that's what the label says. I'm probably needing to slow down a little bit so you can do a comparison. Now that the sun's getting lower and lower, it's become a little bit more of a problem flying towards it. Again, it's a camera issue, not a goggle issue. I do see more breakup than I do with my rapid fire modules. It's actually something I have to look for as I'm flying, though. Well, it's closer to the fence there than I thought. Oh, we'll go ahead and go over to the neighbor's yard here. Now here I can't hardly see because of that darkness issue. On 25 milliwatts. Whoa! Had a little stutter there that concerned me. Getting the antenna away, so I would say compared to what I've seen, the reception just isn't as good. But of course we're comparing a $150 module. I think it's 150 still, to a set of goggles with diversity modules inside of them. So not really fair, but gives you an idea of what it's going to be like for you if you were to purchase a set. I'm actually pretty pleased with how things look through the goggles, even with the smaller field of view. And a little sloppy there. Well, we've been flying for 4 minutes. You guys are probably getting bored of this, aren't you? I know I got the sweat rolling down my back. have to kind of stay out of the sun with this camera. I'm very interested to see what the DVR is like, which you're already seeing. Haven't seen it yet. I do like the feature that it has for auto record, so I kind of instantly missed that button already on the Fat Shark modules where you have a button to start your recording. Then you can only see that you're recording when you bring the OSD down, and it disappears by default after 3 seconds. But I'm also getting used to where they've kind of settled in on my face. Not thinking about that nearly as much. Alright, I'm going to bring it in. Now, how do I stop the recording? Oh, it's got a record button. I forgot all about that record button. That was stupid. Well, it's initial impressions. Alright, and I've stopped the recording now.
So as the annotations indicated, I did figure out why the DVR and my field camera, which I got an old cell phone, set it on the table, start the recording, clap to sync them both up, and then that's what I use for flight videos. But if you're like me and you make that sort of video with your DVR footage, as we kind of have to do with most of our micros still, I figured out the sync problem. I don't understand it, but I figured it out. Basically, you want to make sure that you've got your video signal already set up and going on the goggles before you start the recording. It's that simple. I went back out after recording this and doing the editing, and I went, I got to figure out what this is. I can't send this on the way without that little part. It really bothered me. So if you're using that, it doesn't matter for most people because you use DVR for other purposes. Very few people, I suspect, would be syncing it to another camera for audio purposes. But if you do, just make sure you've got your video signal going in the goggles before you start the DVR. On with the last bit of the video. The last point I want to say before we say goodbye is the price point. Now, these have dropped in price recently, and maybe Fat Shark is going to counter the Skyzones, but they're, at my time of looking, are coming in at $50 less than the Attitude V5s. So if you're comparing those two, I'll have links down in the description. You can look to see what the price of these are. I'll also find links to the Attitude V5s if you're curious, because you may be not familiar with those. Those are probably your price point you're shopping at, and these have been around so long that Skyzone has some new goggles on the way as well. But those goggles are going to cost quite a bit more. If you have any comments, questions, suggestions, or otherwise, please let me know in the section down below. I appreciate your time. And thanks for watching.